Thank you for the wonderful music. I always enjoy you guys. You're so wonderful. And I'm so glad that you decided to leap forward this morning and show up. Leaping forward in this time zone is really very metaphysical, because when we leap forward into something new, and this time change is new, then we get to see things and do things and observe things that we didn't before. For instance, in the morning, we get to see what it's like in the morning when it's cloudy. And then we get to see the sunset in the evening, and it's usually not cloudy. So we get to see different things in different ways. The title of my talk this morning is, What the Heck are the Keys of the Kingdom and Why Do We Want Them? I don't know. Before we get to the keys, let's take a look at what leads up to Peter getting those keys. Jesus had, it was really iffy times when Jesus lived. The Romans occupied Israel, and in order to keep the peace, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who were the religious community, were supposed to keep a lid on things. And then Jesus comes along and kind of blows everything up. He isn't out to start a new religion. He just wants everybody to get to a deeper religion, a deeper understanding. But that requires changes. If we're going to do that, that requires changes. So the Romans aren't too happy with him. So he had been once again questioned by the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they've left that, and they've gone now, he and the disciples have gone to Caesarea Philippi. And when they get there, Jesus wants to know what people think about him. And so he's kind of, you can't take polls in that time, so he had to ask. And he says, who do those people say that I am? Want to take that poll? How do they see me? And so the disciples say, oh, John the Baptist or Elijah or Jeremiah or one of those prophets. Because the Israelites, the Jewish people, expected a prophet to come back to lead them, to save them, to lead them. So then he says, I don't think he likes that answer. The prophets did a wonderful job, but they kind of stood between the people and God, because God only spoke to the prophets, and then he relayed that, he or she relayed that to the people, especially when they were doing things that weren't quite in alignment with what God wanted them to do. So that's not a good answer for Jesus, and so he says, but who do you say I am? Who do you think I am? What do you think about me? And Peter, who is usually the spokesman for the group, pipes up and says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. He has this wonderful moment of inspiration and seeing the truth that Jesus is a manifestation of the Christ, that he is a Son of God, and being a Son of God, he has all of the same qualities as God. Not God's qualities, but the qualities of God. And we all have that. We don't realize it, but we all have that. We don't see that we are Christ's in the becoming, and that we are on the planet to express that as best we can at any given moment. We're in that process. So anyway, Jesus says to Peter, you're right. And on this rock, I will build my church. Now, everybody takes it to think that what Jesus is talking about is building the rock on Peter's faith. That's the common understanding of that. But what if Jesus was saying, I'm going to build my church on the Christ within all people. Now, we've got a problem there. Not about the Christ, but about the church, because there wasn't one. There wasn't a church. There was, and the word translated to church, it originally just means a community of people. And so this community of people were the people that believed in the teachings of Jesus, and more than believed. There's a difference between belief and faith. When we believe something, we don't necessarily act on it or apply it to our life. When we have faith, it's an automatic part of us and an automatic response from the Spirit within us. And that's what made Peter see the Christ in Jesus, that faith, that knowing that we know that we know. So he tells Peter, you're the rock, and I'm going to build this big church, and nothing can ever destroy it. It's going to be really great. And then Jesus says to Peter, because you have this wonderful inspiration and you know what the Christ is, I will give you the keys of the kingdom. Now, I have been on the internet. I have been on every spiritual book that I possess, and I cannot find what the keys are to the kingdom. A lot of churches make their own list of what the keys to the kingdom are. And they're so powerful. At that time, having a key to something was really powerful. The steward of the house would have the keys to every room, the treasure, took care of all the finances. So that key was a symbol of power. But what were they? I made my own list. Why the heck do we want them, and what is the kingdom of heaven? Because the keys are keys to open that kingdom of heaven for us. Peter, when he saw that Jesus was the Christ, saw a glimpse of heaven. Heaven is not a place. Heaven is the underlying reality that all of our physical reality is based on. That's kind of hard sometimes for us to to understand. When we glimpse the kingdom of heaven, it's an overwhelming feeling of wonder. And the colors are just so bright. And you feel like you're one with everything. There's a peace. Peace. Charles Fillmore says the kingdom of heaven is the realm of divine ideas. What are divine ideas? Divine ideas are the love of God and the love in us. The idea of prayer, the idea of wholeness, of oneness. And we tap into that kingdom of heaven when we have the key. So what is the key? And why do we want to go to the kingdom of heaven? Once we get the keys, we will, whatever we bind on earth, we will bind in heaven. Now, what the heck does that mean? We're going to tie up a bundle and let it sit there? Well, but we do tie up bundles. We tie up our understanding. It's really hard to open that bundle of what we understand about who we are and what life is all about. And once we have that kingdom, the keys of the kingdom, we get to unwrap the bundle, loose it in heaven, so that we have that direct contact with God. Whatever you loose on earth, you will loose in heaven. That means we are open and receptive to the allness of God and those divine ideas. Whatever you bind on earth, you will be bound in heaven. That means that we don't get through to the kingdom of heaven. It isn't that we can't, it's that we have not made the decision to do it. And that's the first key. The decision to do it. Nothing happens in our lives until we make a decision. Now, we may make that decision unconsciously, but it's still a decision that's based on other decisions that we've made. And that's what binds us. So the first key is decision. Years ago, I had a phone call. I was ready to leave the office, and my secretary called me back and said I had an urgent phone call. So I went in and answered the phone, and this woman's voice said, I don't think you remember me, but your son's ex-girlfriend. And I'm thinking, why is my son's ex-girlfriend calling me? And she says, I think maybe you can help my mother. And I go, okay, tell me about it. She said, my mother has been trying to make a decision about a life-changing move in her life. And she can't decide what to do it. And we have this old saying, when you doubt, don't. But there was such wonderful prospects on both sides that she couldn't make up her mind. So she was coming to me to help her make up her mind. So she came in and we sat down, and I said, well, tell me about it. And she started to talk, and I noticed that at the end of almost every sentence, she would say, I just don't know. I just don't know. So we talked for a while, and it kept she was totally unaware of it. So I said to her, do you know that at the end of every sentence you say, I don't know? She says, well, I don't. But I said, something inside of you does know, but you're not open to it. That answer is deep within you. And if you get quiet, it will come. She says, I don't know. So we talked for a while. I said to her, now every time when you're talking, every time you say, I don't know, I'm going to interrupt and say, did you hear that? So we talked, and so it kind of got kind of monotonous as she was talking because I was interrupting her after every sentence. And finally she said to me, well, what difference does it make? I don't know. And again I said, there's something within you that knows the answer. She had this decision all bound up. So I said, you need to be able to get to that answer. And one of the ways that you do it is to decide that the answer is within you, and you solidify that decision by listening to what you're saying, and then counter that with, oh, but I do know, because there's something inside of me that knows. And that will loose that in heaven, create an opening for her to make that decision. Well, I didn't hear from her. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months. Didn't hear from her. And I didn't call to find out because it's not my business. You know, you do the work and you let people do what they do with that. And if they come back, that can be a good thing or not good thing. So she called me, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 months later. And she said to me, I'm so glad I came to talk to you. Because I made my decision, and it was absolutely the right decision. She said, not only that, but I've noticed how often that I say, I don't know, and remembered that the answer is within me, and began to say, but I do know, because there's something inside of me that knows. And when we contact that something inside of us that knows, we release the faith, and so we know that we know that we know. So we're chatting along, and she did not say, I don't know. But she did say something else wonderful has happened. She says, when I come to a decision that's a particularly important decision, I remind myself that there is something within me that knows the best way to go. And that has blessed me and brought me to where I am, which in our parlance would be the kingdom of heaven. She was in harmony, not all the time, because we don't do that. It might be 5 minutes that we get that inspiration like Peter did. It might be 3 seconds, but we get it, even if it's that small. And we decide to live this Christ presence within us, and we can. We can. We can. You can. You can. You can do it. Live from the Christ within to the best of your ability at any given time. And you begin to loose all of those things that have been holding us back. So the first key is decision. The second key is listening to what you're telling yourself, about a situation. Think about what you're thinking about, because everything begins in thought. So now we're ready to get to prayer. We've made the decision, we're giving the thought, and now we're ready to get to the prayer, to deepen our faith, to loose on earth and in heaven our connection to Spirit, to the allness of God, to open our heart to that God part that's in us so that we express it. So that's why we want the keys to the kingdom. The keys, Jesus says, you look all over for the kingdom of heaven, but it's within you. Stop doing that. This kingdom of heaven within you knows. The Christ within you always knows. And if you forget that it's there, it's okay. It's just part of the process. And we bring ourselves back. I think that's all I've got to say. Nothing else is coming out. And so I guess I have to say, thank you for waking up and being here. And that's the truth.
This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you. And I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you. I'm lost without you. I'm lost without you. I'm desperate for you. I'm desperate for you.